Hello, welcome to Lesson 1 on the Executive Branch. You're going to see that this is the first lesson of the first unit dealing with the Executive Branch, but we'll have two. This unit will be focusing on the qualifications and the rigorous procedures one must go through to become the President of the United States. The following lesson or unit will be dealing with the many powers that the President of the United States has. Your objectives for this lesson, Lesson 1 of Unit 1, to be able to tell me what the executive branch does. What's its purpose in the separation of power system? Why is it there? Secondly, I'd like you to be able to identify the qualifications to be President of the United States, henceforth known as the POTUS, the President of the United States. And you'll see that there are official qualifications in the Constitution, and in 2015 there's definitely unofficial ones. So we'll talk about both. We're looking at the executive branch. It can be found in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. We're going to see that this article has a great deal of restrictions on the power of the president because our founders were worried or nervous about an all-powerful, tyrannical head of state, and they want to make sure that they put limitations on that. We'll get into that more within the following unit. That being said, what's the main job of the executive branch, of the POTUS? To enforce the law, to execute the law, to carry out the law. That word execute means to complete. So to carry out, if you think of those of you who can skateboard, if you do a 720 backspin, if I say, so-and-so executed 720 backspin, that means they were able to perform it. They did it. So Congress makes the laws. The executive branch job is to make the laws a reality. Where can I find the executive branch? Well, the main headquarters is the Executive Mansion, also known as the White House. Pretty house. The president doesn't own it. We own it. It is the property of the United States, but it is also the residency of the president and the center of the executive branch of government. It's here where we find the West Wing and the Situation Room, where many of the important tasks of the president, daily tasks, take place. That being said, unlike the legislative branch, which is centered around the Capitol and the office buildings around it, the executive branch has many, many different headquarters or buildings, depending on which area of the law it's focused in on. Where is it executing? Where is it carrying out the law? One of the most famous executive buildings is the Pentagon, found in Northern Virginia. The Pentagon is the center of the U.S. Department of Defense. The Pentagon is part of the executive branch. So the generals, the leaders that work in there controlling and guiding our military policy and executing our military law, that is part of the executive branch. But you will find similar buildings for the State Department, the Department of Education, Department of Environmental Protection, the FBI, so on and so forth. All those are part of the executive branch. All those different places answer to the president. If all these places are enforcing laws, the president is the top enforcer of all these laws. So there's many different headquarters for the executive branch, but one main one, and that is the White House. Maybe someday you'll live there. Let's move on. What's the main governing body? Is the presidential administration. The president is, the most important figure within this administration, but the POTUS has many, many people working underneath them. When you watch the Brain Pop next unit that deals with the powers of the executive branch, they refer to the president as a CEO of a company, as the facilitator. The president delegates authority out, and many different people answer to them, including the vice president, including the cabinet, including every general within the military, most officers within the government. Their main boss, the top boss, the boss of bosses, is the president of the United States. So naturally, the leader of the executive branch is the POTUS. If you are president of the United States, you are elected. If you are elected president of the United States, I correct myself, you're elected to a 4-year term. The Constitution has been amended to make sure that a presidential candidate can only be elected twice. You're limited to 2 terms. The president is one of the few federal positions where there is a definite term limit. This came about after Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected to 4 terms. Many people feared that the presidency would become almost like a king, where a person would serve for life. And when the founders created the position of the president, and we see the precedent set by George Washington as the first president, the president of the United States wasn't designed to be a lifetime gig. It was meant to be interchanging. That being said, what do you need to be? What qualifications do you need to have in order to become president of the United States? So, step 1, you have to be qualified. The requirements, the official requirements within the Constitution are: you have to be at least 35 years old. 1. 2, citizenship. You have to be a natural-born citizen. That means that you have to be, in Bruce Springsteen's words, born in the USA. You have to be, you can't be a naturalized citizen. Even if your parents are both citizens, if you weren't born within the borders of the United States, you're not a natural-born U.S. citizen. Now, are there some exceptions to the rule? Well, of course. John McCain ran for president in 2008, being born in Panama, but born in a military base on Panama in the Panama Canal Zone. Military bases are technically U.S. territory, no matter where they are in the world. If you're in an embassy and happen to be born in a U.S. embassy, it's technically U.S. soil. So there are some exceptions, but for the most part, the idea was that they wanted whoever was going to be controlling our military, controlling our country, controlling our foreign policy, that their birth allegiance would be to the United States. Lastly, residency. You have to be a resident of the United States for 14 years. That means that you can't have, lived abroad, lived in another country within the past 14 years. That doesn't mean that you can't go on vacation internationally. Resident means that you live there, you work there, you have visas and permission to live there. It's much different than going someplace on vacation. So let's say you, after college, decide to live in Europe for 5 years and then move back to the United States. You'd have to wait 14 years upon your return to be qualified to run for president. But those are the only requirements: at least 35, natural-born citizen, resident for 14 years. A lot of people thought there should be more qualifications, but they wanted to leave it very simple and leave it up for the people to decide what qualifications they want unofficially for somebody to be elected president. So, what are some of the unofficial requirements? Well, experience helps. It helps to have a background in military and working within other branches of government, working in diplomacy. Your background, your experience, even working in business, being I referred to before, a CEO of the government. If you have a background in administrating business, some people might think that would be a good experience. Let's face facts. A lot of you will be applying for jobs later in your life. If you don't have appropriate experience, it's going to be very difficult for you to get hired for that job. When you're running for president, you're asking the American people to elect you, to hire you for a job. 2, you need some charisma. You need to have some charisma. You need to be able to have an ability to speak publicly. Sadly, in 2015, you have to look good on camera. That some of our greatest presidents probably wouldn't be electable in the age of television and YouTube and social media. Abraham Lincoln had a high pitched voice, wasn't necessarily the best looker. Thomas Jefferson was very shy about public speaking. So chances are in 2015, those great presidents wouldn't be elected. You need some charisma. You need to have some personality. People need to be drawn to you. Last but not least, core values. You need to have, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? What are you advocating for? What are you fighting for? What do you want to see within America? People will connect their values to your values. And you need to be coming up with a stand of what you want to do with the office of the presidency. Just some examples. Charisma. And if we look here, you see two future presidents who were debating one another on national television in 1960. On your left, you see Democratic candidate John F. Kennedy. On your right, you see Richard Milhous Nixon, the Republican candidate. Nixon had more experience. He was a former vice president. Both of them were war heroes. However, they both took part in the first televised debate. First time a debate between presidential candidates was carried across the country on camera. Before the debate, Kennedy was approached by a makeup artist and said, "Yes, definitely, put makeup on me. I'm going to be on camera. I want to look good." Nixon said, "No, I don't want any makeup on." And as a result, on camera, he had a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, had some shadows under his eyes, whereas Kennedy looked glowing on the camera. Americans who watched the debate, the vast majority of them thought that Kennedy won. Americans who listened to debate on the radio, the vast majority of them thought Nixon had won. So having a little bit of charisma and being able to be good for the camera in 2015 can help you become president. So, what are the qualifications to be the POTUS? Officially, unofficially, I'd like for you to tell me the official ones and some of the unofficial ones as your first question for this lesson. And lastly, I want you to look at that qualification for president that is limited to natural-born citizens. We are a nation of immigrants. Many people argue that this is important, that we need to maintain that. Only natural-born citizens should be able to run for president. Others argue that we've had great Republicans and Democrats for both parties that would have made strong presidents that were U.S. citizens that happen to be foreign-born. And we shouldn't punish a citizen simply because of where they were, the land of their birth. I'd like for you to give me your opinion. What do you think? Explain and expand your answer, and you'll be finished with lesson 1. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.